Hello everyone, in this video I am building a snowy biome habitat for Yutyrannus, one of the new creatures in Jurassic World Evolution 2. And this habitat is going to be based on Prehistoric Planet, where the Nanuqsaurus faced off against a herd of Pachyrhinosaurus. But Yutyrannus happens to be the one big fluffy carnivore that we actually have in the game, and it made me think of that scene, so just go with it, okay? Since the habitat will be built inside an aviary, I'm turning off the instant construction option that we have in Sandbox. This way, when I place the aviaries and pause the game as the aviaries are being constructed, I can see the outline of the habitat without the glass dome getting in the way while building, because that becomes very annoying very quickly. That's also a good tip for any time you actually want to spend a good amount of time decorating the inside of an aviary, even when it's just for a regular flying reptile species. Just turn off the instant construction for a little bit so you have more camera freedom, you can get all of the angles, and you don't have the glass walls in the way. So attached to this aviary, or biodome in this case, are 4 viewing galleries, and we're also going to have a gyrosphere tour go through the habitat. I felt the gyrospheres were the best match for the snowy environment, and actually a little benefit to the gyrosphere in comparison to the other tours is that the track can make very sharp curves, which makes it a lot easier to work with. The track is very difficult to see, but for the next step of this habitat, and the most important step, honestly, I need to be able to see the tracks. So I went in and I highlighted it with snow, but that actually was still quite difficult to actually track down the track. What I should have done is use the water brush and just fill the entire aviary with water so the track would have stood out, because obviously you can't flood the track itself, so that'll stay put. I really thought I was being smart with the snow, but I actually wasn't. Learn from my mistakes and just use the water brush instead to instantly make the track stand out. The reason I needed to be able to see the track was because I am lining the entire track with rocks on both sides, using the smallest rocks possible. Yes, that is quite a bit of work. So what I did with the tour track was line the entire length of it, again on both sides, with mostly the smaller rocks. Sometimes I dropped in a couple of bigger ones. And those rocks lining the tour track are actually going to function as the barrier within the biome to separate it into 2 habitats. On one side we'll have the Yutyrannus, and on the other side we'll have the Pachyrhinosaurus. Because this is supposed to be a zoo habitat, so you don't actually want to put predator and prey together where they can hurt each other, as we saw them do in Prehistoric Planet. It's about creating the illusion of a natural ecosystem while actually protecting both species from each other. So that's where the rock placement comes in, and while I was placing the tour track earlier, I made sure that it's sort of like separated the 2 halves the way I wanted it to. So if you're going to use this, you're going to have to think about how you want to separate the aviary into 2 habitats as you place the track. You have to place the track as if you are placing fence. Obviously, a couple of rocks wouldn't realistically keep the dinosaurs separate from each other, but this is where I'm going to use that word, pretend. You have to pretend that there is invisible fencing technology being used here underneath the line of rock. Unfortunately, the actual invisible fence in the game cannot be used inside of an aviary, but the rocks work very well as a barrier. The dinosaurs will not cross over this. It took me exactly 10 minutes to place all of the rocks, so yeah, it's a bit of a chore, I'll admit that, but it's literally the key to this exhibit, so I had to commit. Now, the habitat can be decorated any way you like. You can use any kind of biome, of course, but I went with a snowy tundra look to honor the Prehistoric Planet scene, which inspired this habitat. Now, the actual scene in the series was very much wide open, empty space. To make the enclosures more interesting to build and also to look at, I did add quite a bit of decorative foliage, rocks, shrubs, water, all that sort of stuff. Because just painting it white with the snow terrain brush would have been very boring. I had a lot of fun building this exhibit, and I hope you enjoy seeing the process of me making it, and more than anything I hope that it inspires you for your own builds, like that you get a couple of ideas from this. If it does inspire you, please give the video a like, that helps me out a ton. And if you want more park building ideas and tips, basically my entire channel is dedicated to that. So if you like the content, consider subscribing. I will also be building a habitat for the Dinocyrus very soon as well, so stay tuned for that one. Alright, so with the interior of the aviary done, it's time to add our dinosaurs using the aviary hatchery glitch. Frontier still hasn't fixed it, and I really don't think they ever will, but still, people ask me after every single update, does the glitch still work? And yes, it does still work. If you don't know how it works, I have a video on it, and I will link that at the end of this one. The build is not done though. No. As always with these habitat builds, I also do a little work on the surrounding guest areas, again with the hopes of sparking some ideas for you. I kept it pretty simple with this one, just a bit of path by the Yutyrannus viewing galleries, and a bigger promenade on the other side. Of course, you have to imagine this build as being part of a bigger park. So on the other side of the great path, you could, for example, have the next exhibit, or you could place amenities. You basically have to imagine these habitat speed builds that I'm doing as like little puzzle pieces that are part of a bigger park that you yourself are gonna build, and you're basically gonna create the puzzle around it. If you're ever struggling with starting a new park because you try to plan too far ahead and you just can't, you have no inspiration, I suggest that you just start with one exhibit and let the park flow out from there. If you can plan ahead, that's great, and it does usually lend itself to a better and obviously a more thought out layout for your park, but you don't have to feel like you always need to have this vision of what the park will look like. Sometimes the best parks can be built when you just begin somewhere and let the park fan out naturally from there. Just let inspiration flow. For extra viewing options, I decided to add a viewing tower, and I also remembered that we have these cool new viewing domes as well, so I put one of those into the Pachyrhinosaurus half of the biodome. And this is the end result! I'm very happy with how it turned out. I really love making biodomes for my dinosaurs, and I think this idea to separate it into two enclosures with a rock wall is pretty fun and can be used for many different builds. Of course, you can also use it for regular enclosures outside of the aviary if you either don't have the invisible fencing, which comes in the Dominion Biosyn expansion, or if you just don't like the look of the invisible fencing. Let me know in a comment down below what you think of this build. If you also have the feathered species pack, then I hope you're enjoying having the Yutyrannus for your parks as much as I am. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.